Good afternoon. I'm Eric Schwartz, President of Refugees International, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our annual Advocacy Awards. I am going to break character and go off script for a second and say that I could not be more excited about today's event. We are deeply grateful to our generous sponsors and friends, members of our board of directors and board emeritus who continue to support our work, and to all of you who are with us today and who have made the time to attend this very meaningful event. For more than 4 decades, Refugees International has fought to promote the rights and the well-being of refugees and displaced people around the world forced to flee persecution and other human rights abuses, forced to flee war and conflict and natural disasters made worse by the effects of climate change. This mission guides our unique and critical program of activities. As a globally focused refugee and humanitarian organization that is exclusively dedicated to reporting, to public education, and to advocacy on behalf of forcibly displaced persons. We publicly report on conditions confronting refugees and those displaced within their countries of origin. We press for progressive policy change in the provision of life-saving assistance and protection of human rights, and we promote solutions to displacement crises by holding national governments, UN agencies, and humanitarian aid providers accountable to affected populations. RI is a nonpartisan organization and does not accept funds from governments or international organizations. This helps to ensure both the independence and the credibility of our work, which is guided by humanitarian principles, and it also underscores the importance of support from the philanthropic community. Today, we have an outstanding program honoring displaced women and girls, which highlights our global advocacy on their behalf through our Women and Girls program. I want to extend my most sincere and deepest gratitude to our awardees and our program participants, Nadia Murad and Nadia's Initiative, Dr. Amani Balor, Emmy Mahmoud, Angelina Jolie, and our moderator, Melissa Fleming. In September 2019, Melissa was appointed Undersecretary General for Global Communications for the United Nations. In the decade before, she served as the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, head of global communications, and the spokesperson for the High Commissioner. Melissa is an author. She's host of the award-winning podcast, Awake at Night. She's a frequent interview guest on international media platforms, and her talks are featured on TED.com. So please join me in welcoming Melissa Fleming.
Thank you so much, Eric. I'm waiting to see my image on the screen. I'm seeing Eric there. I would like to I'm thrilled to be here. I just want to make sure that everybody is hearing me. If I could get some kind of signal, because I am not seeing my image on the screen. Okay, very good. I'm getting the signal that I'm being heard and seen. And so thank you so much, Eric, and good afternoon. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. It's truly an honor, a personal honor to be part of this event, having worked for the cause of refugees for so many years. So we're gathering together virtually to celebrate the extraordinary contributions that our awardees have been making to communities in need and to the lives of displaced women and girls worldwide. They remind us that when women thrive, so too do their families, and so too do their communities. So we're going to begin the program with one of our most dedicated advocates for refugees and displaced people. For 20 years, Angelina Jolie has been a tireless voice. She has carried out nearly 60 field missions with UNHCR, and she served as a UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador in 2011 and 12, and since then as Special Envoy for almost a decade. I had the pleasure in 2013 to visit the Zatri refugee camp with Angelina. I've seen her dedication firsthand and hear her always focusing on the personal, the families, the children, and the hope and resilience that they have inside of them. Her engagement also, though, goes beyond the visits and the drawing attention to the plight of refugees in their limbo. She does also engage with decision makers and conducts enormous advocacy on behalf of the forcibly displaced, contributing greatly to the process of finding a viable solution for them and to global displacement in general. So it is now my pleasure to introduce UNHCR Special Envoy Angelina Jolie.
We know Nadia Murad for her courageous stand on behalf of Yazidi survivors and her campaigning at the UN and around the world. But as Nadia said, she wasn't born to give speeches. She never wished to leave the village of Kocho where she was born, the youngest of 11 children, the baby of the family, who woke every day to the sound of her mother baking bread in the tandoor oven, who helped with the harvest and the shearing, who enjoyed history at school and thought she might become a teacher, who played with makeup and dreamt of opening a hair salon. This young girl, raised in the ancient faith and traditions of the Yazidi people, should have been able to live a peaceful life. She should have had the chance to dress her friends' hair for their weddings, as she imagined, to teach in her local school, or to run for parliament. And she should have had the chance to see her mother grow old. Instead, for 2 long weeks, her village was encircled by Islamic State forces. They waited, trapped and defenseless, for help that never came. Nadia's family knew what capture by Islamic State meant, and so did we. And for me, this is one of the most painful aspects of Nadia's story. We like to think that such disasters happen overnight. And in truth, they unfold slowly, with many moments in which the course of history could have been changed, and the death of innocent people prevented. We have to ask, why do we live in a world in which minorities like the Yazidis or the Rohingya live such a precarious existence? Why are there so many among us still threatened by difference? How can ethnic cleansing and genocide still be carried out so easily and with so few consequences for the guilty parties? When did mass rape and abuse of women become normal? Why did the lives of some people in some countries still count for so little? How can it be acceptable that there are over 80 million people living displaced from their homes? 80 million people who share aspects of Nadia's experience. I'm sorry, Nadia, that when it mattered most, you and your family were alone. You should have been protected, and instead, you now fight to protect others. In your book, you wrote, "Being forced to leave your home out of fear is one of the worst injustices a human being can face. Everything you love is stolen, and you risk your life to live in a place where you're not really wanted." I recognize the injustice of that description. who could not. But I feel I speak for many when I say, you are wanted. And more than that, you are needed. Your courage and your commitment to justice sets an example and a path for all of us. So I'm delighted to present you and Nadia's initiative, Refugee International's Award.
Thank you to Angelina for the kind introduction and your dedication to improving the lives of women, children, and displaced people. You are an inspiration. It is a great honor to accept this award on behalf of Nadia's initiative. We are humbled to stand among so many esteemed recipients and to be recognized by an organization that has defined the standard of humanitarian excellence for over 40 years. The seminal work of Refugees International in raising awareness of the realities of displacement and disproportionate effects on women and girls is critical. It is a privilege to share the virtual stage tonight with Dr. Amani Balor. I want to express my utmost respect for her bravery, initiative, and tireless work that provided so many with life-saving care. In a pandemic year that has devastated the rights of women and girls, it is all the more meaningful that Refugees International has chosen to recognize work by women for the well-being and the empowerment of women. I founded Nadia's initiative because I witnessed firsthand the dire need for sustainable solution to displacement. Refugee camps are intended to serve only immediate needs, and opportunities for resettlement are rapidly shrinking as nations close their borders. It is clear that a sustainable approach is needed to address the long-term consequences of conflict, sexual violence, and marginalization. For my community, the Yazidi people of Iraq, this means facilitating a safe return home from displacement camps by rebuilding their lives in Sinjar. I won't pretend that this is the easiest path, but the right one never is. Still, challenges must not discourage us from addressing the root causes of displacement. At Nadia's initiative, we have been able to overcome barriers to sustainable development by centering the communities we serve, their needs, their hopes, and their participation at every step of the process. Whenever I am discouraged, I only have to look to the resilience of my community and my fellow survivors to know that we can build a better world if we pair their strength and innovation with tangible support. This award is for them. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadia, and thank you for the work that you do and your team does at Nadia's initiative. Congratulations on this award. the work that you do to rebuild communities and also to demand policy changes for refugees to live in dignity when they are in exile, but also to enable their safe return like you are advocating for the Yazidi community in Iraq. Also, congratulations for this recognition of your work to protect and support survivors of sexual violence, which is used so horrifically and systematically as a weapon of war. You have experienced it yourself, and thank you for being so courageous to tell your personal story so people can really understand what it means for people who face and have survived this terrible, these terrible atrocities. I now have the privilege to talk with Dr. Amani Balor, the recipient of Refugee International's Exceptional Service Award. Dr. Balor ran an underground hospital, literally underground, as in subterranean, while under siege in Ghouta, Syria during the war. Some of you may have already heard about the hospital and its work, or seen the documentary, the amazing documentary, The Cave. And if you haven't, I do urge you to see it. But we have the pleasure to be able to hear directly from Dr. Balor now. And I would really like to acknowledge your incredible work I'd love to also acknowledge your selfless commitment to your community and your global advocacy for the rights of women and children. And so my first question is, let's start from the beginning. How did you first come to be in that hospital?
Good evening, everyone. Actually, it's in the evening in Germany. And thank you so much, Melissa. And I'd like to thank Nadia for everything you do and for inspiring us, me and all the girls around the world. Actually, to me, I was a medical student in Faculty of Medicine when the Syrian Revolution started. And immediately I saw how Assad regime and its allies started to shoot people, kill them, and then bomb us. That's why I saw the casualties of children and women, and I decided to help them immediately. I'm studying medicine to help them because I want to do something for my community, for my people. That's why I decided to do that. And I think every human, every doctor have to do the same. After that, we didn't expect that the Assad regime and its allies will besiege us, prevent medical supplies, food, everything from our about 500,000 people were in Eastern Ghouta. They bombed the hospital. That's why we decided to start working underground to protect the medical staff and patients. And we worked there about 6 years. And I was working in emergency room and as pediatrician at the beginning. Then I managed the hospital for about 2 years.
This is really incredible to try to imagine. So for 6 years, you ran a hospital underground as Ghouta was besieged, was bombed. Can you just describe what it was like, going to work each day, and what was a day in the life like during this time?
Well, it was death everywhere, death all the time. We were underground. We missed to see the sunlight. We missed to see smiles by the children. We wanted to help everyone, to save all the lives. It was horrible to work all the time under bombing, all types of weapons, chemical weapons, and underground, and to see casualties all the time. The hospital was always full of blood, of parts of bodies, and we have, very little medical supplies. We try to get more always. We try to get medicine for all the people. It was very bad life. Actually, I can't describe this in words. About 6 years we were bombed. And after that, we tried to do everything we can. We did our best to save the lives, to stay in our country, but they forced us to leave. We didn't want to leave. We wanted to stay in our country, but we had no choice.
You're being recognized because you, against all odds, you did manage for 6 years to run this medical facility and save so many lives. What is it that you're perhaps most proud of?
I'm proud of everything we did there because we saved lives. We helped children, we helped women. I was very happy there, in spite of everything, all the death around us, all the fear and everything, but we were happy because just to do something people need you to do, you feel happy just to help someone. If I could help a child who has pain or something like that, I feel happy. I felt happy after giving a child some food he or she needs. That makes us very happy. This feelings can't be described by words, but many things make us happy there. That's why we wanted to stay.
Yeah, obviously you had an incredible sense of purpose in helping your community during a really extreme time. But I wonder also how you managed to cope. I mean, you must have been living, number one, in fear, also for your own safety and for the safety of your family, and also in a certain sense of desperation that you didn't know where you were going to get the next medical equipment, supplies, medicines. How did you cope personally yourself with these feelings?
We always have hope. We always hope that something will happen. Someone will help us. The international community will do something. They will help us. They will bring food and medicine for the children. At least they will evacuate the children out of the area. We always have hope. For about 6 years, we hope to get help from, I don't know, from someone, from some country. That's why we stayed working. That's why we continue working. It's hope which always push us. And humanity. Just believe in humanity. That it's my goal in the life. I believe in God and I believe in humanity. I believe that I have to help. Everyone need help. And I did that because this is my thoughts. This is what everyone in this life do. That's why we are here in this life. So my beliefs and my hope push me all the time to do that.
Indeed, I think all of us who work with refugees recognize this quality. I mean, when we hear the stories of what people go through in war, the fear, the destruction, the loss, the death, sometimes we just wonder how could you hold on to hope? But it seems to be just this remarkable human trait. And this ability to show resilience. But I think your ability to show hope through all of that time is incredibly remarkable. I know it was especially hard for women and girls during this time of besiegement and bombardment. Can you describe, perhaps from a perspective of a doctor, what women and girls were going through?
Yes, women and girls, they were the most vulnerable there. I worked with them actually because I was a pediatrician and I always see children, young girls and their mothers. But actually, so many mothers lost their husbands or their men in the war, and that's why they were responsible for everything, responsible for the children, to get them everything and to take care of themselves. They always were the most likely to human rights violation, including sexual and gender violence. They were likely not to have their basic needs met, like shelters, hygiene, physical and mental health, and basic education. For about 6 years, you see women doing everything just to feed their children, to protect them, to protect themselves. They were trying to work to do everything. They work as nurses in our hospital and in other medical centers. They work in education centers, which was founded in Al Ghouta during the siege, and they work with men in everything in Al Ghouta, and that was actually some positive points. under war, bombing, and siege, that women were allowed to work.
Okay, so you seem to be someone who always looks for some positive side and some upside. And you said that you never wanted to be a refugee. I think most refugees would say that, and you ended up a refugee. You're talking to us from Berlin, from Germany. And I believe that we'd just love to hear, like, what is your life like now? And a little bit about the foundation that you're setting up to help women and girls who are impacted by conflict.
I recently arrived Germany. I was also in Turkey and in north of Syria. Yes, we don't want to leave our country, but we did. So we have to do something now to continue our role in this life. So I established this fund in partnership with King Baudouin Foundation in Belgium, and it's to support and empower women and young girls in conflict zones and Syria. We'll start in Syria and the countryside and neighboring countries. I called it Al-Amal, which means hope in English. And this is my goal now, to bring hope for women, young girls, and for all the community in conflict zone. I'm studying now the German language and working on this fund. Together, I will equalize my medical degree. And I recently arrived here and I have many things to do.
Well, it sounds like you're incredibly determined and full of energy. And I just wonder whether you have a message to your fellow Syrian refugees, many of whom are stuck in this, just decade-old limbo, and perhaps just really longing to go home but can't, and are struggling in these very difficult times. What would your message to them be?
Okay, we're forced to be in this situation. No one, like you said, no one wants to be a refugee. And our country needs us. So we have to continue our mission, to continue our role, to do everything we can to help others, help each one to come back to our country and rebuild it. This is what I hope from everyone. And actually, we see incredible work from Syrian refugees around the world they are doing everything to achieve justice for Syria and freedom. And of course, we will come back and rebuild our country.
Indeed, I believe all the communities, all the countries that have received Syrian refugees have been incredibly enriched by their presence. And what a loss for Syria, but what a gain for those countries who accept them and also allow them to pursue, like you're doing. You're pursuing your medical equivalency and starting a foundation to help your people. So thank you for all that you do, Dr. Ballour, and congratulations once again on this well-deserved award from Refugees International.
Thank you so much. It's really a great honor for me to be awarded by Refugees International. Thank you, everyone, for the incredible work you do. Thank you, Melissa.
Well, I think we're all very inspired, and I think that's a great segue because we are honoring remarkable women today. And now we get to turn to the amazing, highly accomplished, multi-talented, and a friend, Emmy Mahmoud. Emmy is a two-time world champion poet, as well as a UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador. Emmy co-founded a sickle cell research initiative at just the age of 19 as a medical student herself. So it's really now my great pleasure to introduce Emmy Mahmoud.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that introduction, Melissa. You are a great friend and an inspiration to me, and everyone here is so inspiring. I hope the poetry inspires you as well. I'll start with this poem called Dr. Poem. Dr. Ballour, I hope you like this especially. And then I'm gonna close with Mama. His daughter was dying, so he begged my father to look after her. My dad said, "Don't worry, bones heal. It's the waiting that gets you." In that moment, I was convinced that my father could fix everything. I am not my father. I stare at my hands each day, wondering when they'll look like his. It was midday, and the doctors were stressed but still moving. I was working in the only birthing hospital for miles in my homeland, Darfur. When I go home, they call it community service. The prodigal daughter returns from America to heal her people with the things she learned in her ivory tower. But there are things in medicine we don't have scientific names for. I was one of 6 doctors. I am not a doctor. When they brought in our patients with all that blood on the outside of their bodies and tears and dust, and the mothers wondering if they can resurrect the earth to plead with the angels of death on their behalf, the operation room became a trial, the scalpel a gavel, and every doctor a perjure on this broken witness stand. We were arbiters of death. This isn't how it was meant to be. When my cousin's stomach split open and the confetti of his gut littered the floor, when my uncle drank the river through his lungs, when the illness stole the girl across the street in broad daylight, when my brother caved to the embrace of the second bullet, when the cancer came for all the things the war had left behind, I wished I were my father or someone or God, a doctor, a doctor, a doctor. But what do you say when their first question is about the war? What happens when they hate you for bringing them back? Or when the insurance won't pay for the operation and you still can't afford it either? Or when they bomb the hospital so you have to operate without borders? Or when they hold you at gunpoint for transporting vaccinations so the children can survive until after the war? I still don't know what comes after the war. Or when the husband won't sign the consent form for his wife's treatment because a fully conscious woman doesn't have that right in my homeland. When I tell you misogyny is life-threatening, when I tell you the patriarchy can kill you, this is what I mean. In one day, we had 6 emergency C-sections, an entire would-be classroom of infants passed through our halls, each of them fighting for their lives without any knowledge. How many of us had to fight for it first? I'm ashamed to admit the guilt of being a doctor in the war zone, bringing children into Armageddon. But they have to understand that their lives matter. And I can't fix anything, but I can make them breathe. Breathe, breathe. Thank you. What comes after the war? That's a question that I struggle with a lot. And I think this poem, I wrote it in 2013. I'm not a doctor yet. I'm still, applying to medical school and hopefully going into training and everything. But I spent a lot of my life preparing for that moment. I wrote this poem in 2013 when I first returned to Sudan as an adult. Before I'd been in Darfur and in Sudan as a child, and I'd seen the war and everything that was happening. And returning as an adult is a completely different feeling because you finally understand the level of responsibility. It finally truly dawned on me because I was returning no longer as somebody who others were responsible for, but as someone who was responsible for other people. We were children, and now we're growing up to be people who address the issues that shaped our histories. That day, when I was working in the birthing hospital, I learned that it's not enough to be a good doctor. The entire system has to change. The doctors I shadowed were facing issues of limited resources, operating in a war zone in a half-built hospital, working to heal people that the state and the world had decided were not worth saving, my people. I made a vow then and there to return and change the status quo so we wouldn't pass it on to the next generation because it had already passed to my generation. I started peace talks in 2017. I walked 1,000 kilometers across Sudan and thousands of people joined across the way in 2018. And then I worked on the peace agreement in 2020, bringing the voices of the people that I collected in the peace talks into the peace agreement, which was signed into law last year in the summer. But still, although the revolution began only 9 months after I finished my walk and the dictator fell only a couple of months after that, I found that even though I created access to create that change on my own, I couldn't bring so many people along with me. So that brings me to the importance of why we're here. The change we need calls for an entire shift in paradigm on a global scale. It's not one girl or one woman or one person breaking free. It's not me or you. It's an entire generation of women and girls and all human beings who are constantly relegated to the periphery of life, constantly seen as other, told that we are not enough and never will be enough for all of us to be moving forward into safety, into freedom, into a world that not only accepts us, but welcomes our existence and celebrates our lives, supports our well-being, upholds our humanity. So I'm going back again, inshallah, to just do that, but this time on a global scale. For the past couple of years, I've been working on building an initiative called the Women's Table, to drive home the notion that if we constantly and consistently put the most vulnerable people at the forefront of change, we'll finally see a day when every person can be treated with humanity and respect and the love and care that we show to each other, even in times of crisis. And I can't think of two people who embody that more than Nadia and Dr. Ballour. And I hope you'll all join. And I really can't think of anyone better than all of you to embody that world that we're trying to create. So thank you for having me, everyone. And this next poem is called Mama. And I hope it inspires you as much as you all inspired me. So yeah, I hope the change will come. A child once asked me, when do you think we'll achieve change, or do you think we'll ever achieve change? And I said that I think we will, because we have no other choice. So I hope this next poem inspires you. Here is Mama. I was walking down the street when a man stopped me and said, "Hey, yo, sister, are you from the motherland? Because my skin is a shade too dark not to have come from foreign soil. Because this garment on my head screams Africa. Because my body is a beacon calling everyone to come flock to the motherland." I said, "Yeah, I'm Sudanese, why?" He says, "Yes, you is, because you got a little bit of flavor in you. Don't get me wrong, I'm just admiring what your mama gave you." Let me tell you something about my mama. She can reduce a man to tattered flesh without so much as blinking. Her words fester beneath your skin, and the whole time you won't be able to stop cradling her eyes, because my mama is a woman, flawless and formidable in the same step. Woman walks into a war zone and has warriors cowering at her feet. My mama holds all of us in her face, in her body, in her blood, and blood is no good once you let it loose, so she always holds us close, keeping us safe from caving in. When I was 7, my mama cradled bullets in the billows of her robes. That same night, she taught me how to get gunpowder out of cotton with a bar of soap. Years later, when the soldiers held her at gunpoint and asked her who she was, she said, "I am a daughter of Adam. I am a woman. Who the hell are you?" And the last time we went home, we watched our village burn. Soldiers pouring blood from civilian skulls as if they too could turn water into wine. They stole the ground from beneath our feet. The woman who raised me turned and said, "Don't be scared. I'm your mother. I'm here. I won't let them through." My mama gave me conviction. Women like her inherit bruised wrists, tired eyes, and a titanium-plated spine. The daughters of widows wearing the wings of amputees, they carry countries between their shoulder blades. Now, I'm not saying that dating is a first world problem, but these trifling guys seem to be. The kind who'll quote Rumi, but not know what he sacrificed for war. Who'll fawn over Lupita, but turn their racial filters on. Who'll take their politics with a latte when I take mine with tear gas. Every guy I meet wants me my introduction to the dark side, wants me to open up this obsidian skin and let him read every tearful page, because what survivor hasn't had her struggle made spectacle? Don't talk about the motherland unless you know that being from Africa means waking up an afterthought in this country. Don't talk about my flavor unless you know that my flavor is insurrection. It is rebellion. It is resistance. My flavor is burden, it is grit, and it is compromise. And you don't know compromise till you've rebuilt your home for the 3rd time without bricks, without mortar, without any other option. I turned to the man and said, "My mother and I don't walk the streets alone back home anymore. Back home, there are no streets to walk anymore." Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
At this moment, more people have been forced to flee their homes due to violence and persecution than ever before on record. Half of them are women and girls. Life in displacement is full of uncertainty, challenges, and danger. Displaced people often live in areas that are overcrowded, and they often have limited access to basic necessities like food, clean water, or medical care. In these settings, women and girls face the increased risk of gender-based violence, like domestic violence, trafficking, and forced and early marriage. But even in the face of these hardships, displaced women and girls are resilient. They are hopeful for a better future, and they know what they need. Displaced women want the same things as everyone else: safety for their children, a roof over their head, opportunities to grow, and basic dignity. At Refugees International, our job is to listen to displaced women and girls and bring their voices to the halls of political power. Our independent advocacy highlights the unique challenges women and girls face, identifies solutions, and demands action from policymakers. We know that when women and girls have opportunities, their families and communities thrive. We're fighting so that displaced women and girls can live in safety and dignity and have a say in their future. Together, we can make a more welcoming world for displaced women and girls. Join us.
What a powerful video demonstrating the work of Refugees International to bring voices of women to the halls of power. And also just thanks to Emmy for sharing your stirring, personal, magical poetry, truly art as advocacy. I'd now like to welcome Devin Cohn, who is Refugee International's Senior Advocate for Women and Girls. She will tell you how you can support Refugees International's work.
Thank you, Melissa. You have just heard from some of the most remarkable women in this world, truly. Their bravery, knowledge, dedication, and optimism are inspiring and unparalleled. Each of them has defied odds to improve the lives of people affected by conflict, and they too have been affected. Thank you all for joining us today for Refugees International's annual Advocacy Awards. And thank you so much to Angelina Jolie, Nadia Murad, Dr. Amani Balor, Emmy Mahmoud, and Melissa Fleming for your tireless work and for being part of this event. As Melissa said, my name is Devin Cohn, and I'm the Senior Advocate for Women and Girls here at Refugees International. Refugees International works to shine a light on the challenges faced by displaced people, to advocate for solutions, and to demand action. We know that when displaced women and girls are given the chance, they find opportunities to help, to heal, and to strengthen their communities, as the women we have honored today have so beautifully demonstrated. And we know that women from all circumstances can and will be leaders. As you have seen today, women are powerful, and displacement does not diminish that power. So why do we have a program dedicated to women and girls at Refugees International? Because conflict, violence, persecution, climate change, policy, public health, and even humanitarian aid affect women and girls differently. Yet the risks that women and girls face, as well as their needs and capabilities, are often overlooked. At Refugees International, we are committed to putting women and girls front and center. We are living through a difficult moment. The COVID-19 pandemic has touched all of us, regardless of who we are or where we come from. But displaced women and girls have been hit particularly hard. Over the past year, Refugees International found that especially women lost their livelihoods in alarming numbers during the pandemic. Schools closed, countries, including the United States, used the pretext of the pandemic to turn back families seeking safety at our borders. Humanitarian funding for essential services like sexual and reproductive health decreased significantly during the pandemic, and gender-based violence rose amid lockdowns. Now, as nations continue to turn inward, the world's displaced people are at risk of being left behind in the global vaccine effort. We have a lot of work to do, but we can make a difference when we listen to displaced women and girls, learn from them, and advocate together with them. And we need your support. With your help, we will continue to demand a better future for displaced women and girls. You can text refugees to 44321 to make a secure donation to Refugees International from your phone. That's refugees 44321. When we come together, we can build a better future. I am confident in this, and my colleagues and I will continue to do everything we can to make this a reality. Thank you for participating in this event, and thank you for your support.